So now let's move on to digging a little deeper with these two diets. So first, let's look at the keto diets. And the keto claims, there are many. We'll look at, I think, 3 of them. The claims are that they're the best diets for weight loss, they reverse type 2 diabetes, and they kill cancer. So those are the 3 we'll look at today. So number 1, weight loss. Well, we've got a fair bit of research on this, but most of the research is fairly short term, between 3 weeks and 4 months. And reports, these reports, these sort of short-term reports do show significant weight loss with ketogenic diets. They show favorable changes in body composition and markers of inflammation and effective appetite suppression. In the research that is 6 months to 1 year, so still fairly short term, but a little longer than the other studies, we actually have a 2020 meta-analysis of 38 randomized controlled trials with around 6,500 participants. Over half of the studies were ketogenic diets with 10% or fewer of the calories from carbohydrates. The balance were low carbohydrate diets with less than 40% of calories from carbohydrates. Keto and low carb diets led to about a 1.3 kilogram or 2.9 pound greater weight loss than diets containing less than 30% fat. And they led to favorable changes in triglycerides and HDL cholesterol, but unfavorable changes in LDL and total cholesterol. So for the longer term research, 1 year or more, we have a meta-analysis of 13 randomized controlled trials. They showed slightly more weight loss, about 2 pounds more over a year on keto versus a low-fat diet. And the low-fat diet was defined as less than 30% fat. And a lot of people would argue that's not very low fat, but that's what they counted as low fat. And it was lower in triglycerides, higher in, lower triglycerides and raised, they had lower triglycerides and higher HDL cholesterol levels on the keto versus the low fat, higher LDL, and no significant differences in blood pressure, fasting glucose, insulin, HbA1c, or C-reactive protein. The weight loss was similar to the low fat over 2 years, however. Now, this study is really interesting. This is a 2016 metabolic ward trial. And if you're not familiar with a metabolic ward trial, it's basically a trial where people are kind of in a little prison. They're in a hospital and they have no access to food other than what is being provided for them. So it's a very well-controlled kind of program. And they compared a baseline diet with 50% of calories from carbohydrate with an isocaloric keto diet, which means a diet that had the same number of calories, which was only 5% carbohydrate, in 17 overweight men. And in a 4-week crossover design, 4 weeks on the baseline diet and then 4 weeks on the ketogenic diet, the loss of fat-free mass or muscle was greater on the keto diet than it was on the 50% carbohydrate diet. It took 4 weeks on the keto diet to lose 0.5 kilograms of fat and only 2 weeks on the baseline diet. So that was interesting. Now, another metabolic ward trial, which I think was even more interesting, same group of researchers, they actually compared a low-fat plant-based diet with only about 10% fat and 75% carbohydrates with a ketogenic diet that was the exact opposite, 10% of calories from carbohydrates and 70% of calories from fat. It was a 2-week crossover design with unrestricted food intake. The ketogenic diet lowered blood glucose, insulin, and triglycerides, but it impaired glucose tolerance and an increased loss of muscle tissue. So those are 2 things that are not good. We don't want to impair glucose tolerance. That basically increases insulin resistance, and we don't want to lose muscle tissue. Now, in the plant-based diet, we saw lower blood pressure, lower cholesterol, and lower energy intakes, which I found quite fascinating. People who could eat as much as they want ate 689 calories less a day on the plant-based diet than on the ketogenic diet. And I think it's because of the amount of fiber and the satiety that comes with a high fiber plant-based diet. But the plant-based diet also, they saw greater fat loss. They lost an average of 51 grams of fat a day on the plant-based diet versus only 16 grams a day on the ketogenic diet. The verdict: ketogenic diets do induce weight loss, but they may be less effective than very low fat plant-based diets.